Just the Tips.
All right, everybody, Adam and Mike, Just the Tips Podcast.
Episode 42.
Officially 42.
Yeah, we're
Shout
back
out to
on
Jackie
track.
Robinson. We'll retire this one after that. We'll hang it in the rafters.
Yep. We're gonna have to wear the number. Everybody wears that number.
We'll put a patch on the shirts. Podcast 42, Jackie Robinson.
All right,
Anyway,
big shout out to our sponsors real quick. Sundog.
let's go.
Dude, this puppy's doing good. Sundog.
And
right.
and coming up on like 80 rounds with these sunglasses. 15,000 miles and probably 90 lawn mows, all with these Sundogs. So they're holding up tough, dude. They've had a great summer.
Back 9 clean. So today's podcast, we got something special coming to you. And while Adam is doing that, I'm just gonna sit here and clean my clubs.
There you go.
It's that easy. No bucket, no water. You're good to go.
There you go. The brushless or the waterless club cleaner.
Yep.
Yep.
Shaft wraps. Yeah.
That's it.
All right, so we got something special coming to you guys from Shaft Wraps. You guys will see that coming soon. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's what
I'm excited.
we're getting into that.
They came in the other day. And again, just an exciting day. We don't get a lot of guests on the podcast. We should have more. We have a very good and strong community that supports us. But today, again, because I'm selfish, I said I need new wedges, so let's bring in.
Oh wait, hang on. Happy anniversary, bro.
Thank you, dude.
Happy anniversary of your
I
hole in one.
appreciate that. It's been 1 year to the day since my hole in one.
Yeah.
This morning, I get a text message from Big Bird, Brandon Kraft, and it said, happy anniversary on your hole in one. And I looked at my wife and I said, you didn't even remember. You didn't even remember today was my anniversary. And she goes, of what? I said, exactly. I said, but Brandon remembered.
Well, he was there.
He was, of course.
He was there.
Yep. It came up on his Snapchat memories, which I think was awesome.
But no, I think it's a great time to do what we're about to get into here with John Winters.
Yeah. So without further ado, Master Club Fitter, Mr. John Winters.
All right.
All right, so welcome to the Just the Tips Podcast, Master Club Fitter, Mr. John Winters.
How's it going, guys? Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, man. So, we're good friends with Ty Fazio, the assistant pro here at Wiltwick, and we were playing reciprocal, and he said, hey, let me bring my boy over. And I've never seen a person more enthusiastic about fitting people with the right clubs than you. I think you're more excited about fitting people with the right clubs than you are about playing golf. And I said, we got to introduce you to the Just the Tips community. So thanks for taking time with us today.
Oh, no, like I said, it was an absolute pleasure. It was a no-brainer to be showing up.
Yep. So if you don't mind me asking, how did you get into the passion for club fitting?
So I was definitely a player first. My dad threw the clubs in my hand when I was 2, and it was just something that like him and I could do like as time went on. But I started getting more serious like 18 and onwards, and I actually started working at Dick's Sporting Goods over in Poughkeepsie when I was like 20, and at that point, like that's where I got exposed to like the whole fitting aspect and whatnot, and it really kind of just like, it's like a third eye moment almost, where you're just like, oh man, there's a lot more that goes into it than just having a good swing and knowing the game in itself. So it definitely all started working there, and like as the years went on, like it's like a combination of different things. Like I love golf, and then it's also like the nerdy side of things. It just turns into a total science. So when you combine those two things, it was like, all right, like why not make a living out of this?
Yeah. So I grew up playing golf and competitive golf in the 80s and 90s, and there was no such thing as club fitting. There was take it out onto the range, whatever your pro had in the shop, whatever you saw your buddy hitting well, that's what you'd play with. And you would get brand conscious. I need to play ping irons, or I need to play TaylorMade woods, or I need to use Titleist wedges. But my experience with club fitting is that if you don't look at the brands and you just look at the numbers, you come up with all kinds of weird stuff, things that you would never consider. But the biggest component is it takes the guesswork out, it takes the anxiety out, and you can walk through any pro shop in America going, no, I got what I need. I don't need anything else. That smoke is sexy, but I know I got this bad boy and it's the best one for me. Right. So, what do you think the number one challenge for amateur golfers is when they're not engaging with a club fitter? Or I guess a better question is why wouldn't somebody get fit for the proper gear?
Well, I think one, you gotta honestly, like I hate to say it, but there's a period where you gotta initially like take it on the chin. Like when people come in and they're like, oh, I'm new to golf. and I want to get fit. Like, it's almost like giving a kid who just got their license like a Ferrari right off the rip. So it's like you can't do that. Like, so it's not like there's like what I call like the exoskeleton. Like there's like little things that we can kind of like guidelines almost that will help you, but like the whole fitting process is almost like as you continue to like play. And when I say consistent, I don't mean like Tiger Woods. I don't care if you shoot 120 or if it's 80. As long as you're repeating your move over and over again, then it starts to become like more and more obvious about like what you need and why you need it and stuff like that. So for the people who are just getting into the game, I think it's like you should spend as little as possible on the clubs. It's more about actually getting out and like learning the mechanics and playing the game. Because I can't tell you how many like customers I've dealt with over the years that just blame it on the club, and we all know it's the Indian, not the bow. So when it comes to fitting, just kind of grind it out, maybe that first year or 2 or 3, and then afterwards, like then you can start piecing your bag slowly but surely. Because like today, for instance, when we get to grinds and bounces, like that's not something that the average Joe is just gonna wake up right off the rip and be like, this is what I need.
All right. So, I mean, again, if somebody, we talk to a lot of beginner golfers, a lot of new golfers, a lot of folks actually come to our channel because they want to learn, the nuance of playing golf. Is it okay to go to like Dick's and just buy the box, with the bag and all the clubs in it from Top Flight and spend $300, $400, $500 and you're good to start?
Yes, I can't tell you, like, honestly, the number one answer that I give to people when they're like, I'm just getting into the game, I'm like, all right, let's go over to the starter set. And I let them know, like, if they want to buy the Strata or whatever, like, if it's more money, you can go right ahead. But it's more about just finding, like, the bare bone stuff, getting an understanding of, like, the mechanics. And then once you graduate from that point, yeah, you can go crazy on the whole, like, fitting aspect, just like these guys over here.
There you go. Callaway's here with us today.
If you don't know what you're doing out there, you're definitely not going to know what equipment you need.
So just real quick, I was getting fitted for my irons this year, and there was 2 bays, and I was getting fitted, and there was a lady who had just retired from being a teacher for 30 years, and she wanted to take up golf, and this guy talked her into about $3,200 worth of clubs for balls that weren't getting off the mat. If she had $3,200 worth of clubs that were perfect worm burners, it was amazing. So I'm done talking about other people. I want to talk about me. Okay, that's why we have this channel, so I can talk about me as much as possible. And one of the things is that I don't know a lot about certain things, and it was never more apparent than when we were in Florida, and I was struggling chipping in Florida. And one of the guys said, "What's the bounce of your wedge?" And I looked at him like he was like, "Did he just switch into Spanish? What's he talking about? I don't know." And they were talking about bounce and grind, and I just got quiet and didn't say a word. We had one guy that left the boys trip to go to Dick's to buy a new set of wedges just for Florida, and I go, "Okay," I said, I have 2 wedges in my bag. Thank you, Shaft Wraps, for distinguishing between the 2, because in the heat of battle, I never get them confused. The 54 is in traditional Adam Paddock, just the tips yellow. And the 60 is wrapped in a beautiful topographical feature of Augusta National, right? But the reason I have these is because they were in the pro shop, and I like a 54 and a 60 because that's what I've had since I was 13. I have no idea if these are right for me. So when you're going to fit, and again, right now I'm a 3 handicap. So if you're going to fit a single-digit player to a set of wedges, what goes into that? How do you determine? And then we'll get on the putting green a little bit, and we'll talk about the differences between the clubs.
Okay. Well, like it starts with pretty much like almost like an interview process, to say the least. Like you want to get a feel for what their strengths are, what they don't like doing, and stuff like that. So you'll ask them, like, do you like to play a lot of open or closed shots and whatnot with the face? Do you like to manipulate it? Are you more of just trying to like keep it square and just keep things simple and stuff like that? And then once you kind of get a feel for what they're trying to do with it, like the grind and the bounce becomes a little more obvious. And then you like kind of just hinting at like, different locations, like we kind of talked about over there. Where you're at is a big like indicator on like what kind of grind and bounce you need. Because like we said, if we're playing on the other side of the world where it's like England, those guys, true links golf, that stuff is so firm that we cannot be using like 10, 12 degrees of bounce or 14 or something like that. Yeah, because just think about it. Like the club will be truly ricocheting like off the club or the ground like that. And then vice versa. Like when we play in like areas like around here where it's a little more spongy, if we use like a lower bounce wedge, and it's not to say that like given the conditions that you can't pull it off. Like again, that's why it comes down to the person. But there's just simple like general rules of thumb that's like you got to be mindful of. So if we're using low bounce in soft conditions, chances are the leading edge is going to be digging in all the time
Gotcha.
because there's no extra room.
Well, let's not talk about other people. Let's talk about me. All right, you're interviewing me about my wedges. So, what's the first thing that I should be looking for?
For you, I would pay attention to your divot. That's really going to be a big indicator on what's going on.
I don't take a divot.
So right off the rip, like we can almost kind of leave the high bounce stuff off the rip, or away, I should say, because if you're taking those big beaver tails, like you're fighting Mother Earth and you're losing, that's where the high bounce comes in because we need that greater angle.
I love Tiger Woods when he's playing those courses and he takes a divot that's 2.5 feet long.
Yeah, and it's just a carpet.
I've never taken one of those. The longest divot I ever took was 6 inches.
But listen, there's pros and cons of doing it both ways. So like somebody like you're going to be a low bounce guy because you're a little sweepier like that. So like you're not really creating this severe angle. Like you're almost kind of just like sweeping it almost. So that's why like the bounce can be a little more shallow. It doesn't have to be as severe.
All right.
So like for you, you'd probably like with your 60. I think you got that. What do you got? The 8. Like this isn't the end of the world. He's got like this 8 degrees of bounce going on. He's got the M grind for the Vokies. So like the M grind specifically is for somebody who really wants to play those open and closed shots and whatnot, really knows what they're doing with the face. And the 8 degrees of bounce right there, again, it's going to be it's more towards the higher side of the low bounce, but again, I would classify it as like low to mid bounce right there. But that's truly okay with you. If I wouldn't leave that. But something like this, like your little 56 over here.
Yep. So this is my weapon. This is
Or your 54.
So I use this. I'm deadly from 75 yards. I expect to get up and down from 75 yards. I can open the face a little bit, hit it to 55 yards, 60, no big deal. I get around the green. I can play a bump and run with it. I can hit a flop shot. I have a specialty shot for hitting out of the rough. I do everything with this club from 75 yards to 75 inches, depending on where I put my hands and where I open the face, right? But is that a thing? Should I have more wedges and less shots? I don't know.
No. So again, that's also like very individually based too, because like, and just from that one time seeing you, like you're a good player. Like you understand like how to hit knockdown shots and like you have good body control and stuff like that. For somebody who's trying to just make the game a little more simple, like that's where you'll see them play more wedges because they just want to take full shots and stuff like that. And then you got guys like Tommy Fleetwood who has like 3 wedges and he goes like 46, 52, and then like 58 or something like that, which for the gapping, like generally you want to be like about 4 degrees. He's got about 6 degrees. And somebody who's like, I would suggest that to is somebody who's very comfortable knocking down, taking shorter swings, like they're very aware. But again, like somebody like you, I think you could get away with 3 or 4. Like you don't have to be that 5th kind of wedge guy. Like again, if you wanted to get down to 3, it'd really just be embracing like again all those quarter shots and stuff like that. You could add another club at the end of the bag. But like, how many wedges do you have? Do you have?
So these are my 2 sand wedges. I have a utility wedge that's probably 48 degrees and a pitching wedge that's probably 43.
Stronger. Yeah, so like for that, I would just keep it like as it is because again, like depending on what clubs you play too, like that's a big thing, like where the whole spacing will come in, like more of these game improvement irons, they're going to be stronger lofted. Like I got those AI smokes over there, great clubs.
Yeah.
But the attack wedge is like 46 degrees, which is like a 2 degree strong pitching wedge. And my pitching wedge is like 42. So like all these things, you know, you keep in mind. So like my gap wedge is 50, sand wedge is similar to yours, 54, and then I play a 58 as opposed to a 50 or a 60 just for.
So for a regular everyday player, when we talk about, well, before we get on the course, just explain what the difference between. We know, everybody knows what loft is. It's the angle from square to open. And I remember John Daly having a 64-degree wedge, so I bought one. I tried to hit it. I knocked my hat off, because it hit me in the brim. So, like I said, this 54 I feel real comfortable with. But when you're talking to, the regular, everyday, average player, what is bounce and grind, and why do you need to identify it before buying a $180 wedge?
Okay. First of all, it's a $180 wedge, so you don't want to be blowing that at, just arm and a leg right there. But bounce is simply the angle from the front of the wedge right here to the back right there. And again, like why you see different numbers is because the more severe somebody's coming down on the ball like that, they're going to need a greater angle right here on the back of the wedge. So that's where the higher bounce guys comes in. But somebody like you, like we said, you're a little more sweepy with it, right? We're not coming in as aggressive. That's why you can afford to have more of a gradual angle back here because you don't need all that right there. You're more of a shallow kind of guy.
So that's the angle of the bottom of the club.
Yeah.
So what would would flat be? What would the bounce of a flat club be?
Well, it would essentially be like what's it called? Zero, honestly.
Zero.
Like if there was no bounce to it, it would literally just the leading edge would be just pressed against the ground right over.
And that's
there
like
pretty much.
our pitching wedges, right? They don't.
What's it called? Believe it or not, most of like, especially when you start getting towards like if you look at the 50 degrees or the 48 degrees, you see less like grinds available unless like you're on tour, they'll do whatever you want. Like there's this one guy, he's got a 9-iron that has a grind on it, and it's like all clubs have grind, but like almost like a wedge type thing. But like pitching wedges and gap wedges, because we're usually taking fuller swings and it depends on the person, you'll see more of like for the Vokies, they'll have that F grind, which again is just more based off of full square
All right, so
shots.
you lost me for a second with grind.
Oh, all right.
I was working bounce, so this
Sorry,
is
so
zero.
the bounce-
so
the bounce on
so this one here, as far as the bounce goes, is that the 10?
So the bounce is just the number.
So this
you
has
say
10 degrees
of
of
that angle right
bounce.
there.
So
from the leading edge right here to the back of like that.
it's tilted this way 10 degrees. So it's
Yes.
54 degrees this way,
Yep.
10 degrees this way.
Yeah,
Okay, that
right
makes
there.
sense.
And then
what the hell's the grind?
So the grind is simply like the shave pattern, and like you could see on both of your clubs over here, they both have like a different bottom to it.
Mhm.
Like we were talking about earlier, the M grind over here has kind of got that little crescent moon shape to it almost, and then this S grind over
Show
here,
them.
you can see it's got that like that little crescent moon type thing
On
right
the
around.
outside,
And
so it's
then
like a
this,
fatter
You
bottom.
can see is more of like a wider sole compared to it, but it's got that little wrinkle in the back. Like the F grind would just simply be all the way straight across, because again, they're not trying to do anything fancy like that.
All right. So for me in my everything wedge, should I be playing this M grind? I never even considered that thing. It just looked like it was a design of the club, not necessarily something for function.
No, so to be honest, like the S grind is one of the more versatile grinds like out there for Voki wedges.
I thought that was a 5.
No,
That's an S?
Yeah, the S grind right there. And it's great for around the greens. It's good for full shots and stuff like that. Like it's a very well balanced wedge. And then compared to like, the M grind, because we were talking about different grinds have different trade-offs. So like you will be able like opening and closing like the face and like really sliding this club under, like that's a specialty right here. But in terms of full shots, you do have to be careful, because if you're not bellying out in the same time or at the same spot all the time, you'll see some inconsistencies and stuff like that.
So we got angle, we got bounce, and we got grind as kind of the width or the shape of the bottom.
Yeah, it's the
All right.
shaving pattern in the bottom.
Now, what's throwing me, and again, like I said, we were in Orlando, we're playing a different type of grass. Everybody's struggling chipping, except for the general. He brought out his 8-iron, and he was chipping like a demon out there. None of us thought about doing that, right? So if I'm here do you buy clubs based geographically? Do I buy my Northeast, my home course clubs?
So the goal, you do want to find a wedge that is essentially as versatile as possible, like where you can play in multiple spots. But again, like if we're, looking at the pros and stuff like that, yes. Like every week, wherever they're going, they're paying attention to the certain, like how firm the ground is, and then also the different types of grasses, because they will have like the way the club interacts with different kinds of grass will manipulate the face and stuff like that. So again, when like Rory's playing over in, the UK over there, he's most likely not using the same wedges as like over in the States, just because of the conditions right off.
Or in down south, or when they're in Hawaii, and when they're playing in the Southwest.
Yes.
So each one of those places has different types of grass, different firmness. And I read somewhere weather conditions too. Like they were saying at Augusta, they got a couple of years ago, they had a really bad rainstorms, and the guys changed up their wedges because the ground was really spongy and soft.
Exactly. Yep.
More so than it normally had been. All right, cool. Let's do this. Why don't we, I got a really good understanding. It's not nearly as complicated as everybody else was making it out to be. I still have zero idea which ones I need, but why don't we go to the green and you can kind of show me what these different things mean in action.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
All right, so we got a whole bunch of wedges for you here. Different grinds, different bounces, apparently different lengths, and from 54 to 60. So, you were talking about the different shots you might play in the different, clubs you might use.
So what's it called? To give a good indicator on like the different conditions, right? So if we were to actually play on something like this, like truly tight like this, the greens almost, like that's where the low bounce is going to be like almost more effective. And then as we kind of move up through the ranks, we get rougher and rougher. By the time we get out to something like this, if I have like 4 degrees of bounce, if I'm not Tiger Woods and I constantly know like where my club is bellying out, I'm going to have a very difficult time getting through this. This is like the rougher it gets, the stickier of a situation it is, the easier it is to kind of embrace the bounce, really allow the club to kind of slide underneath the ball, as opposed to while we get to closer and closer over here, this is where you're going to want to see like that 4 degrees of bounce. So I know that this club isn't ricocheting off. That's where like the trade-off is. Like when we get to the tighter grounds, if you're not precise with your high bounce wedges, you're going to see it. And then again, like if we're in the rougher stuff over here with the lower bounces, you're going to get exposed.
So Wiltwyck is famous for its thick rough. As a matter of fact, right now I would say we're about as low as I've seen it all season. It's also extraordinarily dense. So if I'm in the rough a lot, which I am, I miss a lot of greens left and right, and I want a higher bounce.
And just in general, like rule of thumb too, like when you're dealing with like beginners and stuff like that, and people are a little, on the lesser side, higher bounce is generally recognized as more forgiving because again, like it's not as demanding to get that, like the club to be dropping down on the same point over and over again. But if you get to that low bounce, that's where, the average Joe is really they're either gonna feel that leading edge dig in, or they might just straight up blade it because they're trying to overcompensate or something like that. But again, with Wiltwyck and those conditions, and again, like being in the Northeast, things tend to be soggy and stuff like that. Yes, a little bit higher bounce is probably gonna help out, be a little easier to get out of it. But again, like you're a good player, you know where the club is in your swing and stuff like that. You can get away with like using lower bounce.
I've been working all summer, probably for 2 years now, trying to get out of the rough effectively. And, I'll set up, 100 balls off the fringe and 100 balls out of the rough, and getting to 3 feet, probably 50% of the time from the fringe, probably 20% of the time from the rough. Is there a way that I could buy a wedge that would increase that percentage over what I have now?
To be honest,
because like I said, I normally hit the 54 with the 10 degrees of grind in the standard, right? But if I wanted something that I could put in my hand that was better out of the rough, that would give me an advantage out of the rough, what would that be?
To be honest, like the lie really indicates it. Like if you have like, a crappy lie, like you're going to want something that kind of like you almost have to go with a smaller and smaller club. But like if you have a more ideal line, like, or lie, I should say, less loft, as we know, is easier to control. So like you always grabbing like your 54 is almost, it's honestly, you're going to be more successful than grabbing like me. I'm always like, when I get 100 yards and in, I'm grabbing the 58. I'm a little psycho when it comes to it. But again, like it's just because it's something that I'm routinely dealing with. But again, less loft is easier to control. So like you with that whole 54, and again, like the 10, like you do kind of want to have like an even little balance between your two wedges. It's nice to have one that's low bounce, nice to have one that's high bounce. So like when you are dealing with these different conditions, you're not just screwed right out there on the rip. So like you having your sand wedge being a little higher bounce compared to your 60 is like playing towards your advantage. So like this, like being in Wiltwyck, the rough, you keep grabbing that. But like I'm willing to bet if we were to do the same 100 shots with like your 60 right there, I'm guaranteeing you'd see like less percentages. Like your numbers would go down right there.
Really? Yeah. Okay. So, talk to me about your wedge. Again, you're the club fitter. By the way, a very good stick, low single digit handicap. And congratulations, the new master club fitter where?
Club champion, actually, down in Manhattan, 18-minute walk from Grand Central. So
there you go.
Have to pop out.
So stop down and see John down at the new shop down in Manhattan, especially this winter.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So tell me about your wedge.
So for me, like once like you kind of have an understanding of what kind of grind and bounce you need, it's honestly just going to come down to look, sound, and feel. And like for me, I hate to say it, like before I got into the club fitting, like I just saw like Titleist as like the elitist. I thought like, oh, everybody's just buying it because they're the crap, right? Or the shit. And then when I actually got my hands on it, I noticed, all right, I understand why everybody's going towards it. So for me, Vokies, I call them like the mini trampoline. Like I can really feel like when I connect with the ball, like almost that slingshot effect. Like you can feel the ball jumping off the face. And then what I like about like Cleveland and TaylorMade wedges is they're very like crispy. Very, very crispy is the best way that I can describe it. A little firmer, and the mill grind in itself is its own little category right there. They're a big believer in like the way they like the turf interaction. So
talk about the mill grind. You can't see it on here, but basically just like a milled putter face. You got the little micro grooves coming across the bottom, right? Now you were just telling me, and I think it's interesting. These rust face irons were very popular. As a matter of fact, I did a TaylorMade demo day one time in a rainstorm, and like half the sets were rusted, and it doesn't look great. But it creates more spin, correct?
So it depends on like who you're talking to. I like to think that it does, but like I have seen tales like, Mythbusters that show they debunked that the rust doesn't actually increase spin or anything like that. But if you ask me, I'm one of those guys that thinks it looks great. I do like it. It looks gives it a little bit of character.
You need
almost.
a tetanus shot after using it,
Yeah,
though.
exactly. And if they're pumping it out, like there has to be some kind of percentage in which you're seeing a little more spin towards it.
All right, gotcha. Well, like I said, I learned a lot today. I mean it sincerely. I mean, I went from knowing nothing to being functionally illiterate about bounce and grind. Now, if you're thinking about my game, because we're going here, you can see in the background we got the Callaway demo day. Wiltwick's got a full line of all kinds of wedges from all kinds of manufacturers. What are the 2 wedges I should be buying today?
Well, again, it comes down to like the degrees that you're trying to work with, like what numbers you're trying to hit, right? So like if you like your 60 degree to be your 100-yard club or something like
wish.
that, if you're trying to get a little more out of it or something, then I would embrace like the 58. But again, like your game very well, and after seeing you, like I didn't really see any of the wedge shots that were really like.
I was hitting too many greens that day.
Yeah, exactly. What a problem to have, right? But from the shots that I did see, it's not like I was like, oof, like that guy's club's hurting him or anything like that.
Okay.
Based off the technique. But if you were to treat yourself, like after everything that we talked about, and again, based off of what I heard from you, you're not taking these big divots or anything like that.
Yep.
So you could skate towards the lower bounce side. I don't think you have to go all the way towards like, 4. You could experiment with it if you wanted to see any difference and stuff. But
So maybe in the 54, I keep the same grind.
I would keep that, yeah, just for the versatility's sake and stuff like that.
But bring the 10 maybe down to an 8?
Yeah, if you go, so the deal with like the grinds is if you wanted that grind, the S to stay, you'd have to customize to get the bounce to be like 8, because what they'll do is most 8-degree bounces are going to be like that M grind that you see over there, which you could double down because you are skillful.
So 10 is going to be a standard.
10's okay, yeah. 10 to 12 is probably pretty average.
Okay, so this is a good club, other than the grooves are worn out in the middle.
Yeah. A little groove sharpener wouldn't hurt.
And then this is, really for heavy bunkers, specialty shots. I got a pine tree that's 30 feet in the air, and I only got 40 yards to go. So this M grind is still good?
Just because of your technique alone and because of your skill. Like again, if you were steeper or if we needed a little more help, that's something I'd be mindful of. But again, like you too, like there's 6 degrees of bounces out there. There's the T grind that comes in at 4. Like I'd also experiment just to see like how low you can honestly get away with.
Gotcha.
And see if it kind of helps out. But from what I've seen and from what I've seen with your game, honestly, I'd kind of keep it.
All right. Well, like I said, I'm really, really excited because, again, club fitting takes the guesswork out. When you have a club in your hand and you're asking yourself, is this the right club for me? Or I hit that bad shot. Is it my fault or is it the club shot? Or there's that new sexy wedge in the pro shop. Is that one better for me? Right? Knowledge is power. Knowledge is confidence. And when you know, confidence replaces fear. So again, man, I really appreciate it. Everybody, this has been John Winters, custom master club fitter. Go ahead and check him out down the city. And I'm sure this won't be his last appearance on the channel.
Yeah, no, I'll see you guys next time, all right?
Thanks, dude.
All right, so now I want to talk to you about my wedges just real quick, nothing too crazy, because I have 2 54s in my bag. I don't use them in the same round. And then I have a 58 that just because I think I'm supposed to have one in there. This is the 54 that I love. I was playing that one down like Adam was talking about playing down in the South, and I just kept. I would do what you were just talking about, where you dig it in, and then it just stops, and then you
just getting stuck. With
and
that
then
one?
you go in. No, with that one.
With this one?
So then I broke it.
I gotcha.
So then I bought this one out of the shop, and I don't think this one is the right one for me here.
It's not working.
It might be the one for down south, like you were talking different areas. I believe. I mean, this says SB 11.
The 11 is the bounce right there.
Okay.
So what do you experience with that club? Like, what do you notice, like, your biggest
This one,
weakness?
I feel like I can pick things a little bit cleaner. So if I was off of something like this, I think I'd be able to just kind of like nip it and maybe even get a little spin on it, which I do want to talk to you about spin. That one I can hit off of anything unless it's a really, really tight lie. Or I loved when you were talking with Adam about the ground being hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I'm on something that's hard and obviously there's grass there, but I mean, the ball's sitting on the ground and it's touching dirt and it's hard, I can't hit that.
Can't hit that. And it's crazy too because like, well, with the other one, if you notice.
Now I'm not a 3. I'm not a 3 handicap.
I got that
so.
too. But like if you notice, like this one that you have, the mill grind, has a much wider sole to it compared to this right here. Which when I'm looking at this and you're saying like, oh, like I'm just hitting this one better and better and better. Generally, the wider sole would be like a little more forgiving, a little easier to hit. So like with you with the thinner sole, and you're like, I can do this off of anything. Like it's kind of like impressing me.
So I can open that one a little bit. This one I feel like I can't open.
All right, well that makes sense.
Okay,
like, because
that's
again,
what
like,
it is.
with this being thinner, like this is more versatile, I would say. I think this one would be better around the greens and stuff like that, like a little easier.
And I don't
to
hit. By the way, I don't hit full shots. I don't hit
knockdown shots.
I don't hit 75-yard shots with these.
I got you. Yeah. And then something like this, like because of the wider sole and whatnot, like I can see like why you have like you said you had an easier time hitting this, or it was this one
that one I have an easier time hitting all the shots. This one is just tighter.
Like
yeah. So if I take this one out of the rough, it's gonna go right underneath it. And
no. So with this, like I'd honestly, just from looking at the whole face and setup and whatnot, like I'd be thinking bunkers. I'd be thinking, like you said, like around the greens and stuff like that. But like you don't want to have to carry around 250.
Well,
so,
I just keep them in the bag. If I'm like, we're playing member this weekend, one of them's staying in the trunk, and it's gonna be this one's gonna stay in the trunk.
And the other thing too, like why I see this right off the rip, if you notice, these two clubs are different lengths. So like with this one, you know, with the full shots and stuff, no wonder you're liking this. This has got almost like that pitch and wedge.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I will hit that one like 75 once in a while if I have to.
And again, with the longer shaft too, that's making it a little more difficult for those around the green shots. Because like think about it, like if we were to take like a 4-iron or something and we had to, you know, like it's that being that long, it's awkward. So like this being a little longer is definitely going to benefit like the all around like full shot games and stuff. But when it comes to this is definitely more of like your finesse kind of club.
Yeah, so this one would be fine off of this. Like I would pick it clean. I wouldn't have to do anything. I wouldn't have to manipulate the face at all. But this one, I can do like what Adam was saying, you know, open it, you know, shut it down, bump it if I wanted to. Yeah. So he ended up actually reshafting this and brought it back to life.
Giving it to you.
So, and then this one is window dressing. I don't do
window dressing.
Very tight lies, and I need to get it up in the air quick.
Yes.
I'll try. Doesn't always work. I would say probably you got about a 2% success rate. I don't know.
That's okay, because like I kind of hinted at it earlier when I was talking to Adam. Like notice how like when he was saying like 75 yards and in, he's not just grabbing the highest lofted wedge. Like I'm a psycho and doing that. It's just what I'm comfy with. But 9 times out of 10, less loft is going to be easier to control. So like you saying like I only use this for specific situations. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. So like you're not missing out on anything by doing it. Like
if you got like a high bunker, you got to get it over.
Like it needs like if we were right here and like you needed to get that thing to stop like immediately. Like, bust it out. Or
I would still use this one.
Yeah,
I totally would.
But that's just a confidence thing. And it's not to say like less loft is a great drill to like honestly become a better wedge player, because if you can flop like a 48-degree wedge, like you open that thing up and you're hitting shots like you would with like a 58 or 54, by the time you get to 58 or 54, you're going to be like, you know, Jesus himself, like, you know, just the short game creator. So
yeah, that's true.
It's definitely a good little, like less loft is easier to use, better to practice with, so that when you do get to those higher lofted clubs, you don't feel so shaky over it or whatnot.
All right, let's talk about spin real quick.
Okay.
All right, so, you know, we all have seen that shot, Rory in the Ryder Cup 2 years ago. You know, he's hitting like it's more of like a pitch. It's not even a chip. It's a pitch, maybe like a 40-yard shot, 1 hop, 2 hops, stop.
Yep.
All right, now that's extreme. I would just like to have a little spin around the greens. That's it. How do you do that?
So it could be like a combination of things. So like, first of all, cannot stress this enough, why you see the pros get backspin all the time is because their contact is pure. Like, and one, they got fresh grooves.
Yeah,
like,
clean grooves. Clean your grooves.
Yes, like if you got dirty clubs, my dad used to yell at me all the time. I was a big believer in like, oh, if you hit it good, what the heck does it matter? No, those grooves are literally biting into the ball. That's what's causing the backspin. And the ball is literally climbing up the club. So like when you see those guys pulling it off, it's one, they're catching it pure as hell. 2, they're creating a lot of like, they're pinching it almost. They're hitting very down on the ball, whatnot, and there's a good chance that they have the face wide open as well. Everything that is about that shot is literally designed to get spin.
So let me ask you real quick. I'm gonna just toss this over there, toss that over there. When you're hitting a spinner, like, so say like we want to spin there. Say we want to land this about halfway.
Yeah.
And then maybe 2 hops and a little check, and it'll slow down. When you're hitting that ball, you're not you're not trying to put backspin on it by going underneath it.
No.
You're trying to pinch it into the ground a little bit.
Where a lot of amateurs like go south is like that they're thinking with any club really that they're just trying to help the ball get up in the air. The whole point of each club like having different lofts is because the club is or the ball is literally climbing up the face, and that's why like when you get to a 2-iron that has like 18 degrees, we see an absolute missile because there's not a lot of, it's almost like climbing up like a straight wall.
Yeah.
Compared to like this 58 degree, this thing is literally pointed up to the sky. So no wonder it's going to go straight up in the air.
Yeah, the clubs have different lofts to get it in the air. You don't have to get it in the air.
No. And that's why, like, again, like golf's all about like almost like oxymorons or like just like if you want to get the ball to go up, you got to hit down. If you want to get the ball to go right, you got to swing in and out. Like all these opposite things to get the ball to do what you want. So like if we're really trying to like get, and I will see if I can do this, but like if I want to hit like a little checker or something like that, I'm going to kind of cram this thing in the back of my stance, try and catch it pure, have a little like open face.
But you're trying to pinch that.
Yeah, I'm trying to hit down on it.
You're not
or even if we get another
You're
ball.
not trying to hit it here. You're not trying to hit a lob shot or like a flop shot and getting underneath it and getting it here. You're trying to actually
hit down on it
with a little bit of loft.
And like with this, to be honest, like the way I notice when I get like spin and stop is like I gotta cram it. For me, I'm a very like hands forward kind of chipper like this, really de-lofting the club, and I'm pretty much like just drilling.
So let's just go here real quick. So you're really trying to hit. So this is a 54. So let's just say that's 54 degrees of loft.
Yep.
You're actually trying
I'm
to.
I'm de-lofting it pretty much.
You're de-lofting it. And really hitting
down on it.
The blade that ball is sitting on is where you're trying to like drive the leading edge into.
The best term I like to use is like I'm really trying to cover the ball. Like that's what I really feel like. I'm not trying to get it up or anything like that. I just really want to, and it's like a putting stroke. Like when we're really this close, like I just want to feel like putting down into it almost, and you kind of see, like you can see how it works against itself right there. But like Rory's shot, like I tried to pull off first. Like if he had that thing open, he dead armed it like that. Like that's a whole nother technique.
Yeah, I mean
it can work if you do it. But for me, like to kind of create that.
We're only talking about that shot because it worked. How many other times have you tried to hit that shot and didn't?
That it didn't work or anything like that. But like I would say the average guy would have the easiest time kind of just grabbing a higher lofted wedge, kind of cramming it in the back, de-lofting it, and kind of just drilling it into the ground like that.
But see, now let me ask you this, and this is something that like I noticed as a kid. I don't know if you guys ever did this. When you see a bouncy ball, right? You spin a bouncy ball, it bounces, and it hits the ground, and it actually spins the other way.
Goes for him.
That ball right there had backspin on the first,
and then
hit the ground, and then kind of jumped forward. So how do you get that to
stop? So again, it's a combination of like catching it a little like cleaner, a little more down on it. Like the descent angle is a bit like attack angle, I should say, is like huge on this. So like that had a little more pop to it because chances are I wasn't hitting as down.
It wasn't as clean.
Not as clean, not as down. But if you're really cramming down on it, you really will start to see kind of like that thing come back.
Just don't put one into that window.
So you can see like, look, that stopped like immediately.
Yeah.
So the deeper you put it, the more de-lofting you got going on, the easier it is to
And I also would imagine a little more speed, right? Like if we were a little farther away on like a tight fairway, like, if we were on 18 by those cart signs, you got like maybe a 15-yard shot that you can add a little more speed to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And just have more spin on that initial first bounce.
That's like honestly another reason like why like the average guy like doesn't really usually see backspin from the ball, because most guys are swinging the driver around 77 to 92. So like by the time it gets to the shortest club, like they're not putting enough force on it to actually get it to backspin like that.
You're talking about like spin rate.
Oh, spin, yeah, exactly. Pure spin rate.
Yeah.
Again, like that's club head speed. That's again how clean we're keeping our grooves, how well we're moving, and how well we're catching it, and the ball too, man. You could be using the entirely wrong ball, and
that's another thing.
Yourself in the foot, and you have no idea pretty much.
Yeah, I just got a little information on the first tee over here before you guys got here. So
about the balls and like
the balls and driver.
Yep.
And driver. Now they need a whole new bag.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, dude. We appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks again, guys, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Just the tips.